I don't want to spend too much time talking about Alex Belfield, but I'm afraid it is necessary. This is the man now out of prison with a book that boasted he became a millionaire on YouTube, who was convicted of stalking and harassing people, of orchestrating significant hate crimes against individuals, who claimed in court then to be penniless, having begged his viewers for money to take the BBC to court himself, all the while knowing that he was actually the one likely to be in the dock, that the case was against him, not the BBC. And he claims to have written 6 books in prison. He refuses to admit his guilt, saying he did time to explore the problems in the prison system and to work as a legitimate journalist and record the many problems that he is the Jeffrey Archer of his age. I hope he's also found time to interview Rory Stewart. So the latest chapter in the public saga of Alex Belfield, the disgraced ex-BBC presenter, I think he's less Jeffrey Archer and more and more what is it? The Marquis de Sade, maybe. He's now appearing on his own channel with a fake nose, which looks quite suggestive. He's acquired the accent and the manner of Jimmy Savile. It's a shocking portrayal, really, and this convicted ex-BBC presenter, self-described convicted talker, serial online harasser, and now facing another civil court case brought by one of his accusers, a theatre blogger whom Belfield was convicted of stalking in 2022. And Belfield claims this new civil action could see him bankrupt, yet he simultaneously boasts of shipping out thousands of copies of his book, His Own Worst Enema, and having written 6 volumes behind bars. He's no humble penitent. Instead, Belfield appears to be monetizing his notoriety, cultivating a narrative of martyrdom, while ignoring the catastrophic impact of his harassment on others. Recall that Alex Belfield was sentenced in September 2022 to 5 years and 26 weeks for what the judge described as a campaign of stalking against multiple victims. He was condemned as the Jimmy Savile of trolling. That was Jeremy Vine's line. Jeremy Vine, I think, was the only person in court, because there was a barrister missing on that day, who actually faced Alex Belfield, because other people were giving evidence behind a curtain. And Jeremy Vine, the BBC broadcaster, told the jury that watching Belfield's hateful output was like swimming in sewage. And he described the experience as an avalanche of hatred designed to cause maximum psychological harm. And Jeremy Vine is, he's a kind man. And I think part of this thing, part of Belfield's thing, is jealousy. Belfield wanted to see himself as the scourge of TV, the sort of Jeremy Vine reporter. But Alex Belfield was too up himself, and still is. Liz Green, former BBC Radio Leeds colleague, endured a decade of harassment, including a veiled threat suggesting she should be sent to Auschwitz for her work on Holocaust remembrance. And although Belfield was acquitted of criminal stalking charges in her case, the judge ruled it was a campaign of revenge, leaving her needing psychological support. She has described suicidal thoughts, hair loss, anxiety, years of therapy because of this man. Philip Dehaney, the blogger, now pursuing civil action against Belfield, spoke of hoping Belfield would want to move on after prison, only to find himself dragged into more litigation, with Belfield reluctant to move on, unchanged, and making veiled references all over the place. This is a pattern of manipulation and denial by one man. And Belfield's behaviour, one man, Belfield, His behaviour during and after his trial exposes persistent refusal to take responsibility. In court, he claimed to be penniless, pleading for donations from his fans to take the BBC to court, despite knowing he himself was the one under criminal investigation. Now he's out of prison. He's described himself as a political prisoner and even mocked his own convictions with grotesque jokes. You know where the word grotesque comes from? Grotesque comes from the little caves where Nero's golden house had sunk, and it was covered in the most orgiastic and shocking frescoes. The Italian word for cave is grotto, and the frescoes, the paintings, grotto fresco, grotesque. And Belfield is there with this grotesque nose, like an appalling Pinocchio, with some sort of priapic condition, transplanted priapic condition, mocking his own convictions, as I say, with plans for a future panto, rather brilliantly entitled Jack and the Beanstalker. And his website, now edited, previously displayed a banner reading, "Thank you for stalking alexbelfield.com, officially a political prisoner since 2023. Even the Ministry of Justice felt compelled to stress that offenders on licence must not profit from crime and face immediate recall if they break the rules. Is he not breaking the rules? This new case isn't his first civil liability. Belfield was forced to pay damages to Jeremy Vine in 2023 after libelling him online. He also paid a substantial undisclosed sum to the detective Janet Percival of Nottinghamshire Police, and she sued him for defamation after he falsely accused her of corruption, harassment and collusion with the BBC during his criminal investigation. Percival described her relief at the settlement and said, "It's a huge relief that I can now get on with my police career without having this cloud hanging over me." And Belfield used his time in prison not for reflection or rehabilitation, but for marketing. The Marquis de Sade, without talent. But he does have talent. It's just so misdirected. He wrote 6 books, apparently, heavily promoted before release. He planned a speaking tour, which he had to cancel under license restrictions, but promised to reschedule. He's told fans he was 100% rehabilitated while simultaneously mocking his conditions, claiming his only option was to publish blank books to avoid offending his captors. He's also described the justice system that imprisoned him as the biggest witch hunt in media history. Yet his own website was forced to remove such content after complaints. Interestingly, despite his flamboyant defiance, Belfield was apparently assessed in prison as a very low risk to the public, 0.17 on the OASIS scale, and therefore received no rehabilitative courses. He served half his sentence as is standard in England, meaning around 2.9 years in prison before release on licence. And while this is normal practice, it's understandably angered some of his victims. Liz Green put it bluntly, "I wish he had stayed in for 5.5 years, and she fears his release will offer him another platform for self-promotion and further cruelty." And it appears to be going in that direction. I wish he would just use his talents, his undoubted talents, for some good. Start a garden. Belfield's release video on his Voice of Reason YouTube channel complains of dark forces trying to shut him down. He talks about YouTube being shadow blocking him. He's described himself as not safe on YouTube, though he remains under a final warning from the platform for breaches of harassment rules. He taunted his accusers in the video, demanding they apologise to him, while threatening to go to the police. This reveals the brazenness of a man who will not admit guilt, who minimises his victim's suffering, who seeks to monetize notoriety. There is something very instructive in this case. Alex Belfield is a man who has turned harassment into entertainment, weaponized free speech rhetoric to excuse targeted abuse, and then used the proceeds of his infamy to promote himself as a persecuted truth teller. And meanwhile, his victims live with real psychological scars. It's an indictment of the modern attention economy that even after prison, an audience remains for his kind of performative cruelty. It's also a reminder that our justice system struggles to balance free expression, rehabilitation, and the protection of victims. And while Belfield's licence conditions aim to prevent further harm, they cannot erase what has already been done. And they don't seem to be doing that much to stop him doing more. As Belfield faces this new civil trial, which he claims could bankrupt him, it's difficult to muster sympathy. He says he'll be without a home. Well, maybe Malkinson can lend him a tent. He's shown no remorse, no humility. He's chosen to style himself as a political prisoner. I know political prisoners. I've known political prisoners in Russia. He is not a political prisoner. He's a convicted stalker. And his victims, meanwhile, continue to pick up the pieces of their lives, damaged by years of obsessive, malicious, and public harassment. And one hopes the courts and the public will see through the bombast, the self-pity, the cynical jokes, and remember what the story is actually about: accountability, justice, and the human cost of sustained deliberate cruelty.